Hi, I'm Katie May. I'm from Michigan, and I've spent the past 7 years living and working overseas in England, New Zealand, Australia, and most recently in Myanmar or Burma. I'm now here in southern Thailand, attempting to launch a new career as a writer. I plan to write about the ways that I see the world based on the cultural experiences that I've had. So, here are 5 things that I've learned about the world that I'd like to share with you. So much of what we believe to be right or wrong is actually based on cultural constructs. These are accepted beliefs about when we should or shouldn't wear shoes, make eye contact, things we should or should not say to each other. Sometimes what's expected in one culture is considered rude in another, and what's an accepted norm in one society is completely absurd somewhere else. Some cultural constructs can be good. They promote collaboration, respect, and expressions of love. We often see examples of this when people come together to prepare and share food or music. Other cultural constructs are not so good. They suppress people and ideas that don't fit into societal norms, and they can often hinder our communication with each other. We should preserve and share the aspects of our cultures that promote the common good, and when we're aware of cultural constructs that suppress people and ideas, we should learn to let those go. We can set aside all these cultural differences. We find that we're actually inherently similar in many ways. We all want to be happy. We want to live comfortably. We want to feel as though we're part of a community that we contribute to. We want to understand the world around us, and we want to be understood, or at the very least, we want our voices to be heard. We want to have fun, we want to be forgiven, and we want to love and be loved in return. When we can look past these cultural constructs of nationality, race, and religion, and instead we focus on the things that we have in common, we can start to move towards cross-cultural collaboration, which is increasingly important in our interconnected world. There are also a number of ways that we are inherently dissimilar. Everywhere in the world you go, you find people who are early birds and people who are night owls. People who happily stay in their same hometowns, people with insatiable wanderlust, people who are gay and people who are straight. And there are always a whole lot of people in between. This is because we all lie on a series of spectrums. So the question is not, are you an introvert or are you an extrovert? It's not, are you naturally inclined to monogamy or are you polyamorous? The question is, where on these series of spectrums do we all lie? Now, sometimes cultural constructs would have us believe that one side of a spectrum is better than another. The early bird gets the worm. We need to be brave enough to set aside those cultural constructs of what is good and what is bad, and instead embrace ourselves as we truly are. We also need to learn to accept others and their places on their spectrums without judgment. In doing so, we can learn to live in true authenticity. We can communicate about who we really are, and we can encourage others to do the same. And in doing so, we can start to build relationships and create communities where everyone feels free to be themselves and to contribute in their own unique ways. One spectrum that we all need to be increasingly aware of our position on is privilege. So remember, it's not a question of whether you are privileged or not. It's where on the spectrum do you fall. Now, you're watching this video, so you speak English and you have access to the internet. That makes you privileged in ways that some people can only dream of. If you have clean drinking water, and many people even in Michigan don't, thanks Snyder, that makes you privileged. If you can read and write, you are privileged. If you were born a man and you identify that way, that is a privilege. And if your skin is white, well, then you've hit the privilege jackpot. You may not be wealthy, and I'm sure you have your share of struggles. We all do. What's important is that we focus on the privileges that we do have with an attitude of gratitude, rather than focusing on the disadvantages that we're faced with. Then we can, and indeed should, use the privileges that we have to our own advantage. The thing is, with privilege comes responsibility. I've seen firsthand that the planet and the people who inhabit it are not only beautiful, they're also in dire need of preservation. Those of us who are privileged enough to be aware of that fact also have a responsibility to do something about it. Right now, the Gulf of Thailand is filled with squid boats that use these giant green spotlights to attract the squid. This disrupts their natural behavior, but it's not just the squid who suffer. The seas around here have seen far too much human trafficking and slave labor. Lives are destroyed, all so we can eat cheap seafood. It's not just the food industry that operates this way. It's clothing, it's medicine, it's technology. We all agree that we're fed up with the way these few multinational corporations are benefiting from this system. We want change, but Bernie Sanders cannot do this alone. We have got to stop giving our hard-earned money to the 1%. We've got to start thinking about the way our purchases influence people and the planet. We already know that we need to reduce, reuse, and recycle, but we need to remember to do it in that order. First, we need to reduce the amount of stuff that we buy. especially all this cheap plastic crap that we just throw away. We need to spend our money on experiences instead. We then need to reuse what we already have. We also need to remember that just putting our plastic water bottle in a recycling bin is not enough. Whenever possible, we need to seek out locally produced food, goods, and services. We also need to reward businesses who produce in environmentally friendly ways and are good to their employees. Okay, so now is the part in the video where I direct you to the blog I write so diligently, but I haven't launched it yet. I'm busy researching on Koh Phangan.